Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. Sometime next week, I'm going to be putting out the Ancient Egyptian spell book, which is going to be a massive, all crunch source book going into just full details on the entire magic system for the Ancient Egyptian setting, as well as other Total Party Skills games that are derived from it along the same timeline. So I felt like, just to give people who might not have checked it out yet, just the brief rundown on what exactly is available right now for Expedition to Ancient Egypt, which is, of course, we got the main proper rulebook. Gives you, just the basics on what the setting is, which is 11th century BC Egypt, about a generation or so past the Bronze Age collapse. It's a fantasy horror type game. It's not. It has swords and sandals qualities to it. The basic introductory scenario for player characters is that they're actually from the 20th century. They're a Brandon Fraser-esque, expedition of archaeologists that have traveled into Egypt in the year 1911, only to find themselves hurled back in time to the ancient Egyptian past. There's like actual magic and supernatural stuff. There's also, things that are of myth that turn out to be alien beings, and so you have that ancient aliens kind of angle going on with it. The rule book includes character creation for both 20th century characters and characters native to the time period. So if you want, you can skip the whole expedition from the future thing and just run it straight out from the get go as just an ancient Egyptian setting if you want. It is human focused. Monster player characters are more addressed in the sister game for this, which is Pax Luporum, which I've done other videos about. But for all the rest of the stuff, this is your core rulebook, available on Amazon and on DriveThruRPG. I do have a opening adventure module just to kind of help teach game masters who are new to the Total Party system, just kind of like how to design and structure adventures and encounters for the game. It cues off to basically pick up immediately after the initial introductory scene where characters from the future find themselves in the past. So it gives you a bunch of guidelines that are just going to be generally helpful regardless of whether or not you want to use the ongoing adventure presented in this, because it still does address like a lot of what the immediate concerns of those player characters would have after appearing, in the middle of the past, where they're not even really quite sure where they are or when they are, and can't talk to anybody, and all those other kind of stuff. Who's right in their immediate vicinity? What are the people of ancient Thebes like, and all that kind of stuff. This book does help answer some of those questions for you if you don't feel like having to do a little research of your own. Ancient Egypt Conquers Mars is a campaign source book. It's kind of like for mid-level characters, or you can use it as a kind of an alternative take on the entire setting, because as it implies, it leans into the ancient alien part of the ancient Egyptian setting by contriving a way to get some characters to actually go and see Mars, and kind of like an Edgar Rice Burroughs-esque kind of Martian setting. Like purposely, like some of the inspirations I was taking for this was like some of those like weird Italian sci-fi Hercules movies from the 70s and stuff like that. It's Bronze Age science fiction, with flying stone starships and Olympians living on Olympus Mons on Mars, and actual like octopus-like Martians, and weird mutant centaurs and cyclops and sirens, and they're an ancient Egyptian mummy who's trying to raise an army of the dead on Mars to conquer the planet, and just a bunch of good little fiddles like that. And last up, Science of the Sphinx. This is much like how Ancient Egyptian Spellbook is going to be, this is a bit of a universal source book because the Sphinx do pop up in other parts of the Total Party Skills timeline. But, obviously, they go most hand in hand with Ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt is like the start of the Total Party game series timeline, so I include it with this batch of books. But it does give you like kind of this whole weird backstory of who the Sphinx are, and how all these different games actually kind of interconnect with each other through and across time. And all that kind of good stuff. It's interesting. It's It's almost more just kind of like an odd little bit of science fiction, practically. There is sections in it for creating reincarnated Sphinx as player characters and descriptions of both the city of Utopia and Namtar in Hell, and just the various different ways Sphinx have interacted with different cultures throughout time, and why they get remembered by different kind of names. These Sphinx are also angels and are also griffins and stuff like that. They're alien hawk lion people who are none of those things, but it's the best, easiest way for humans to wrap their brains around what they're looking at. They're practitioners of a high ancient science, which they don't necessarily realize is something that we would think of as magic and all that kind of stuff. Guardians of Heaven and Hell. It's worth checking out if you're into that kind of thing. So anyway, that's it. And like I said, next week, keep your eyes out for the ancient Egyptian spellbook. And until then, stay waspinated.